Hello Guardians, my name is Kooncelot, and today we are going to take a look at the enemies we'll be fighting in the upcoming Destiny expansion, The Taken King. Now before we start analyzing anything, let's take a look at what the official Destiny website for The Taken King has to say about the Taken army. It says, Oryx wields the ability to control a twisted army of vile corruptions known as the Taken. These new enemies have been wholly consumed, possessed by the darkness, bodies and mind twisted into service of their king. Now, they are bent to a singular purpose, our eradication. In addition to this, there is also some important information given about the Taken army in the official Destiny The Taken King Vidoc titled No Legend is Safe. Mark Noseworthy, the executive producer on The Taken King, refers to the Taken as combatants that have been ripped out of our dimension and sent back with new powers and new abilities that are going to challenge players in new ways. Michael Zack, the art director on The Taken King, says, "We wanted to do something that retained elements of where the Taken came from, but that unified them. So they've got like this supernatural flame that's burning them from the inside. And because we wanted to communicate their will being erased, they tend to have jitter in their animations and sort of a tortured look to them." Luke Smith, the creative director on The Taken King, says, "One of the design goals for the Taken was to make the alien races of Destiny feel even more alien." So now that we have a pretty good idea of who the Taken are, let's take a look at their spawn animations. There are several ways I could find that the Taken spawn. The first is the animation you see here, where multiple balls of light seem to be forming the enemy until it appears completely. The second is when a void of light green mist and swirling black wind appears in the air and drops the enemies down from out of the void. The third and last way for them to spawn is from a portal or door. Now while I'm unsure if these different spawn animations actually mean anything, it is interesting to see that there are various ways for the Taken to appear. Right now, it looks like the most common way for them to spawn will be phasing into our dimension, although it is still unclear whether or not the Taken will also spawn from regular door spawn points, or drop ships if the Taken even have or need drop ships, much like the other enemies in Destiny. There is also this interesting animation of a Cabal Centurion being sucked up into a portal. I am guessing that we will be seeing a lot of this throughout the campaign as various enemies are taken to this other dimension and transformed into one of Oryx's puppets. Now, let's move on to the enemies themselves. I'll start with the Taken Fallen and continue on to the other enemy races in the order that they appear in-game. There wasn't a lot of footage of the Fallen, but here's what we know. Here, we have a Taken Fallen Vandal being shot point blank in the face by this cool new gun. We know that this is a Vandal because of its additional arms and its size. Here we have another Taken Fallen Vandal spawning alongside a Taken Cabal Scion. This next clip has several enemies, but in the foreground we see yet another Taken Fallen Vandal, but this time it activates a bubble shield ability that looks very similar to a Defender Titan using Ward of Dawn. Here is another look at this ability. It is probably safe to say that this ability will also act like Ward of Dawn in that it will protect the Vandal from enemy fire. To end the Fallen portion, we have this interesting clip of what appears to be 3 Guardians fighting a giant Shank. Now this enemy is likely not of the Taken army, but it is worth looking at as it may be a mini-boss in a future mission or strike. I should also note that there are some fallen enemies that have not been seen in Taken form yet. These enemies include Dregs, Fallen Captains, Shanks, Servitors, and Fallen Walkers, although these are classified under Fallen Arsenal. That's it for the Fallen. Next up, the Hive. Although we will encounter all the enemy races throughout the Taken King, it is likely that we will be fighting the Hive the most, as Oryx himself is a Hive King. At this point, if you're asking yourself why would Oryx take his own kind, your guess is as good as mine. First, let's start with the Taken Thrall. They seem to behave like normal Thrall, but they have a new ability that lets them move faster. This could be pretty dangerous, considering that the Thrall do melee-based damage and their movement looks fairly unpredictable. Moving on, we have the Taken Acolytes. This is the only clip I have of them, but they look just like regular Acolytes. However, we know that since they are Taken, they will more than likely have a new ability as well. Next, we have the Taken Hive Knights. They appear menacing and have a strange yelling or roaring animation, as seen here. I noticed 2 unique things about the Taken Hive Knights. 1. They have void damage boomers. This is interesting because up until this point, these guns have always dealt arc damage. And 2, They have a new ability where they basically shoot fire from their face. Now, it's possible they could blast a concentrated beam at you, but from the looks of this clip, it seems like they will send a barrage of solar flares at you. What's also interesting about this clip is that this Taken Hive Knight has a name. Cyrock, Word of Oryx. He even has what looks to be his own fight mechanic. At the bottom of the screen, you can see symbols that look like little fireballs, letting the player know where the solar flares landed. My theory is that this ability may be similar to when a Sunsinger Warlock uses a solar grenade, or when a Sunbreaker Titan creates a sunspot, which would essentially mean that you could not step into the area where the solar flares land without being damaged. Moving on, we have Taken Hive Wizards. Here is a clip of a wizard conjuring solar energy for an attack. Previously, wizards have only been able to use arc damage. For their new Taken ability, it looks like they can summon what I like to call Shadow Thrall. It is unclear how many of these Shadow Thrall the wizard can summon at a time. In my opinion, this is one of the cooler Taken abilities I have seen, and I'm very interested to see if they can summon other shadow versions of Hive enemies. Now let's talk about the Taken Ogres. These hulking brutes look pretty cool. They still shoot lasers out of their face, and they still do their ground pound if you get too close. But I wasn't able to find anything unique about them in terms of what their Taken ability might be, but I'm sure they are keeping that a secret on purpose. We do, however, have this named ogre called Bax, Thane of Oryx, and this regular ogre that is classified as a Lost Dreadnought. Oh yeah, and there's this guy. This is truly terrifying. It's basically a giant ogre with spider legs on its back. Get ready to have nightmares. Although we know next to nothing about this particular ogre, it seems like it will be involved in the new raid somehow, as the developers at Bungie were talking about the raid when they showed this clip in the Taken King Vidoc. To finish off the Hive, we have one last clip of an unknown enemy type. In appearance, he looks similar to a medium to large Hive Knight, wielding a giant hammer-like axe. I believe this is a completely new character model as opposed to some of the reskins of old enemies we have been seeing in the last two expansions. I am unsure what to make of this enemy though, as he does not bear the color scheme that the rest of the Taken do, and he also seems too significant to be a regular enemy. The only notable enemy missing from the Taken Hive army is the Shrieker, although it is classified under Hive Arsenal. Time for our next group of enemies, the Vex. First, we have the Taken Goblins. They seem very similar to their regular counterparts in terms of combat. Their new Taken ability, however, is quite different. In this clip, it looks as though the goblins in the back shoot a laser from their eyes at the goblins in the front. It appears this laser gives them something like an overshield. I suspect this ability will be very similar to when a Defender Titan uses Force Barrier. Next, we have the Taken Hobgoblins. Nothing new here as far as I can tell, aside from this strange blast of void energy seen here. I'm unsure if this is their new Taken ability, as this could just be their animation when spotting a player. Finally, we have the Taken Hydras. While I was unable to find any footage of a unique ability for these enemies, I can just tell these guys are going to be a pain. The only notable difference is that they seem to have glowing tentacles coming out of them, which I'm fairly certain has not been seen before on a Vex Hydra. Like the Fallen, there are several enemy types of Vex that have not been seen in Taken form yet. These include Harpies, Minotaurs, and Cyclops, although they are classified under Vex Arsenal. Moving on, last but certainly not least, we have the Cabal. Curiously enough, the Cabal had the most footage alongside the Hive. With the inclusion of the Mars moon, Phobos, and these new enemies that you'll see, I can't help but think that the Cabal play an important role in the new expansion. I expect to see a lot of them. First, let's take a look at the Taken Cabal Phalanx. The first thing I noticed is that their shields appear to be made out of darkness. Their new Taken ability seems to allow them to shoot a large blast of energy out of their shields, making them twice as offensive as before. Also, Cabal Phalanx have always had solar damage slug rifles, but here it looks like they are dealing arc. Next, we have the Taken Cabal Scions. Their Taken ability is very unique. They can basically split themselves into two, therefore multiplying their attack force. For now, it looks like they are only able to do this once, but it still remains unclear if they can do this multiple times. It will also be interesting to see whether or not this ability causes them to split their health or not. Moving on, we have a brand new enemy type. In size and shape, this enemy looks very similar to a Cabal Colossus. However, its armor and weapon look very different, like they have been transformed. Although this enemy is something we have not seen before, it looks like it will follow a similar attack pattern to a Cabal Colossus as well, wielding what appears to be a weapon much like the heavy slug thrower. It is worth noting that this enemy is also much larger than the standard Cabal soldier, as they are usually just a bit taller than Guardians, whereas this enemy is about twice the size. It also has a close-range ground pound, much like the other Cabal command enemies, such as Valus Ta'ark. Here we have another never-before-seen enemy type. I'm probably going to butcher it, but his name is Valus Traurn. This is very clearly a Cabal enemy with what appears to be a mortar on its back as it is lobbing shots into the air. The shots being fired also look like they deal arc damage. Now if that wasn't interesting enough for you, it also looks like he can generate an enormous shield around himself from which he can fire those mortar shots from. Still not impressed? He has expandable jetpack wings that make him fly. This guy is a monster, and what's even more interesting is that he has a brother? Well, at least that's what it looks like. In this clip, you can see 3 Guardians fighting not 1, but 2 winged Cabal. Valus Traurn being green and the other being red. It is also worth pointing out that they have some kind of weapon in their hands that they appear to use to slash at the player and to stab into the ground. Like the other enemy races, we have yet to see some of the Cabal in taken form. These include Legionaries, Centurions, Colossus, and Goliath tanks, although they are classified under Cabal Arsenal. That's it for the Cabal. The only clips I have left are of enemies that had unique names. Now these enemies can clearly fit into one of the various enemy races I've mentioned, but I thought it would be nice to list them separately as they may be of some significance. First, we have Gremlins that are Cabal Scions. Next, the Lurks, which are Hive Acolytes. Then, the Skivers that appear to be Hive Thrall. The Troll that looks like a fallen Vandal due to the bubble shield ability we see it use here. And finally, something called a Ripper. Well, that's everybody aside from Big Bad Oryx himself. Almost all the footage used in this video came from the official Destiny the Taken King Vidoc titled No Legend is Safe. There is a link to that video in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed my first ever Destiny enemy analysis video. Leave a like and subscribe if you want more Destiny content leading up to the Taken King expansion this September. Thanks for watching. See you Starside.